Business Review, a daily program that delves into the latest and most significant economic stories. From stock markets to currency news, Business Review covers the most up-to-date stories in the global financial world.
France, Germany and other European countries have decided to obtain a clever technology to track people who are infected with the new coronavirus. This goes against the confidentiality rules laid by Apple and Google. However, the American manufacturers are working together on developing their own tracking tool. The Stop COVID application in France and the Future program developed in Germany by the Robert Koch Federal Institute is responsible for managing the health crisis across the Rhine. Will both use Bluetooth technology to warn people who have been in contact with an affected patient of COVID-19.
The most important thing here is to protect people's health. We can now guard or observe people individually. It is an impossible and difficult task, but what we can do, if you have a sick person and potentially contagious, we can identify them using this app and by that protecting the general public. Our job here is to isolate the sick and protect the healthy in a way to stop the spread of the disease and treat the contaminated.
The data collected by these applications can be stored on a centralized server or directly in the devices. France, Germany, Italy and Great Britain have chosen the first method. However, Apple, which has made data protection its workhorse, does not allow such applications on its iPhone to use Bluetooth technology in the background.
La France veut veiller à ce que, premièrement, les données que les Français seraient amenés à
France wants to protect the confidentiality of its people, and what these companies have like Google, Facebook and Apple are top secret, because such information should not be used for political and international gains. Secondly, the current opposition by these companies against European nations like France must be analyzed through larger spectrum, considering their history and resentment, where they were sanctioned by European nations when it comes to imposing taxes on their digital services.
Germany also supports the initiative launched at the beginning of the month by a group of 130 researchers from 8 countries on a pan-European platform called PEPPT, Pan-European Privacy-Preserving Proximity Tracing, which will allow the design of the tracing while respecting the privacy of users.
This is Farah Al-Hashim reporting for the Business Review, KTV2, Paris.
U.S. stocks ended the session sharply higher on Friday, April the 24th, but the 3 major indexes recorded weekly losses, snapping a 2-week winning streak. The driver behind that underperformance was the oil market carnage at the start of the week, which dragged the stock market down with it. But finishing in the green on Friday is a hopeful sign for the week ahead. The Dow closed up 1.1% for the week, the index fell 1.9%, the S&P 500 finished 1.4% higher for a 1.3% weekly loss, while the Nasdaq closed up 1.7% and slipped 0.2% on the week. European equities fell, with the Stoxx Europe 600 SXXP declining over 1%, and the FTSE 100 was down 1.2%. By the end of the week, the US dollar was down 0.1% against a basket of currencies trading partners as measured by the US dollar index. Earlier on Wednesday, April the 22nd, U.S. stock markets opened higher after a 2-day sell-off as upbeat quarterly earnings reports lifted sentiment following a record crash in oil prices, although companies warned of more pain in the coming months. The Dow rose 418 points and the S&P 500 opened higher by 51.33 points or 1.88%, and the Nasdaq gained 171 points or just over 2% at the opening bell.
Stocks in Asia declined on Friday as the mainland Chinese stocks dropped by their close. with the Shanghai Composite 1.06% lower at about 2,808.53, while the Shenzhen Composite shed 1.48% to around 1,736.93. The Shenzhen component also fell 1.33% to 10,423.46. Hong Kong's Hang Seng Index was about 0.4% lower as of its final hour of trading. Over in South Korea, the Kospi fell 1.34% to close at 1,889.01, while the Kosdaq Index finished its trading day 1.68% lower at 632.96. The Nikkei 225 in Japan shed 0.86% to close at 19,262, while the Topix Index declined 0.33% to end its trading day at 1,421.29. Elsewhere, Australia's S&P ASX 200 closed 0.49% higher at 5,242.60, while the MSCI Asia ex-Japan Index dipped 0.63%. The Japanese yen traded at 107.70 per dollar after seeing an earlier high of 107.53. The Australian dollar changed hands at 0.63 after touching an earlier high of 0.6381. On April 22nd, Asian share markets slipped to two-week lows as the floor fell out from under crude prices, exposing the deep economic damage wrought by the global coronavirus health crisis. Japan's benchmark Nikkei 225 opened down 0.89%. The Korea Composite Stock Index, or the Kospi, opened down 1.54%. Hong Kong's benchmark Hang Seng Index dropped down 157.62 points, or 0.66%.
Crude prices rose on Friday, April the 24th, as energy producers continued to cut the number of rigs drilling for oil in the United States and Canada. Both Brent and the U.S. crude benchmarks, however, remained on track for the third straight week of losses as global production shutdown failed to keep pace with the collapse in demand caused by the coronavirus pandemic. U.S. oil settled at 44 cents, or 22.67% higher at $16.94 a barrel after surging nearly 20% in the previous session. And Brent crude traded down at 32 cents, at $21.65 a barrel. The oil market has experienced unprecedented turbulence since U.S. prices fell into negative territory on Monday for the first time ever, and international benchmark Brent sank 2 decades lows. According to experts on Monday, while June futures contracts for West Texas Intermediate and prices for Brent crude remained positive at levels over $20 a barrel, the pain for oil prices remains, given the transportation and industrial activity, which together account for more than 90% of crude oil demand, are likely to remain depressed in the near term. On Monday, West Texas Intermediate contract was down $3.40 to $14.87 a barrel. At one point, the contract had fallen as much as 21% to hit a low of $14.47 a barrel, the lowest since March of 1999. The oil industry has been swiftly reducing output in the face of an estimated 30% decline in fuel demand worldwide. Meanwhile, on Tuesday, the 21st of April, the price of light crude oil futures for May delivery on the New York Mercantile Exchange showed a sharp rebound of $37.63 a barrel to $10.01 a barrel. The German Foreign Minister Heiko Maas said on Friday, April the 24th, the coronavirus crisis would not make Brexit negotiations easier, adding that Berlin would use it as UAE presidency in the second half of the year to ensure good result for both the EU and Britain. Separately, with regard to Germany's easing of lockdown measures, Robert Koch Institute, a German agency and research institute responsible for disease control and prevention, said that German daily virus cases needed to fall to few hundreds before restrictions can be eased further. Meanwhile, Chairman of EU leaders Charles Michel said on Thursday, the 23rd April, that the European Union leaders asked the Executive Commission to urgently work out a plan for joint EU financing of the bloc's economic recovery after the pandemic. He said the leaders wanted the Commission to link the recovery plan with the EU's next long-term budget for 2021 through to 2027. The German Chancellor Angela Merkel stressed at the agreement of the European Union leaders that they must work together to set up a fund to help recover from the pandemic, adding that such a fund was also in the interest of Germany and Berlin and would have to make higher contributions to the future EU budget.
The Commissioner for Internal Market and Services, Terry Breton, said on April 21st, an economic support package being readied to help the European Union recover from the coronavirus may need to be worth around 1.6 trillion euros. The EU's industry chief affirmed he was working on plans around the target figure with the Economics Commissioner, Paolo Gentiloni, adding that it would represent some 10% of EU GDP. Spain has called for a fund worth 1.5 trillion euros, roughly on a par with Britain's views, but around 3 times the figure estimated by the head of the Eurozone's bailout fund. Britain told a European Parliament committee on Tuesday Europe's travel industry could plummet as much as 70%, and it could be the slowest sector to recuperate in the 27-nation bloc. He added that the tourism sector was hit first by the coronavirus and recovery will not come fast, adding that the European tourism industry makes up 50% of worldwide travel. On Thursday, April 23rd, Italian Prime Minister Giuseppe Conte said that European Union leaders had made great progress towards an acceptable economic response to the coronavirus crisis. The Premier said a recovery fund to be set up by the European Commission will make the European response stronger, more coordinated and much more effective. EU leaders agreed on Thursday to build a €1 trillion emergency fund to help the continent recover from the pandemic. Thursday's EU summit relieved the pressure by confirming that 3 separate instruments worth €540 billion would be available by June 1st. In addition, leaders agreed to create a new recovery fund, potentially worth €1 trillion or more.
This has been Business Review, your daily source for the most critical stories in the financial world. Tune in next time for the latest financial news impacting the world economy.